Okay, I think we're live now. How's everybody doing tonight? Welcome back to the live stream on My Left Eye. This is the second live stream that we've done. We debuted last Sunday, and it's great to see you. If you're back again, great to see you again. If you're new to the stream, you're very welcome to the stream. I'm just going to give a few minutes for people to join. I hope you're really well this week. Today's Sunday. We're going to be sticking to Sunday at 7:30. For the live stream. A week's a long time in politics, as they say, and this week's been no exception. We've got quite a lot to get through. I'll just give a couple of minutes for people to join on the stream. Just a quick reminder, we do encourage people to let us know your thoughts in the chat, and just a polite reminder to keep it cordial if you are talking or debating amongst yourselves. I don't have any moderators at the moment, so I've got to keep my eye on the stream and the clips as well as the chat as well. So FSM is the dog is back. How you doing? Great to see you again. Very welcome here tonight. Okay, I'm just about finished setting up. But yeah, there has been a lot happening. We're going to go through the latest stuff in Gaza. Again, obviously there's been protests, demonstrations, TV appearances. We've also had a couple of by-elections during the week. So lots to talk about, lots to dig into. I've got plenty of clips to go through and one or two articles as well. So I'm going to start with something that broke quite recently, although this hasn't begun to happen recently, but the BBC, who reported it, have started to talk about it recently. There's been a lot more protests within Israel itself against Netanyahu. People are calling for him to leave. People are calling for peace. We've got a couple of clips here. In fact, there's no sound on this clip. I'm just going to let this play through a couple of times while people are joining. Quite big crowds there, and smoke flares you can see, and things. We're going to go to another clip in a sec from a BBC News article that's got sound, and you can hear from some of the protesters as well. So amazing scenes there. That's from Tel Aviv, I believe, and I'm a poet and I didn't know it. So the sustained pressure on Netanyahu now, not just for peace. A lot of people know that negotiating for a ceasefire is probably the best way to get the hostages released, for example. There have been ceasefire negotiations, at least 2 rounds of them, since things started to escalate in October. Netanyahu has rejected them on both occasions, and the last set of support proposals were perfectly reasonable. They included the release of hostages, but he didn't want to know, and people are getting sick of it. Odin Allfather, how you doing? Thanks a lot for your comment. So incredible scenes, yeah. We'll try and keep you posted with things. We might even have some breaking news while we're on the stream tonight. That happened last week with a couple of the things that we were talking about. So we'll see if there have been any developments in this. Just going to show another clip of some of the actual protesters. This clip's got audio on it. It's from a BBC news article here. I'll just get that on full screen for you. Bit of buffering there, folks. Sorry about that.
It's been time to kick him out and send him to prison years ago. every day we are waiting is too much. People are leaving. People are dying. What else can happen that would need to prove that this is a dangerous government?
בעצם מאוד חשוב לי להפיל את הממשלה הזאת, כי התוצאות שלה הרסניות וכל מה שהם עושים זה לטובת עצמם, הכיסא הפוליטי. והדרך היחידה לדעתי להפיל אותם זה עם מחאה ציבורית רחבה, אז אני פה.
Well, what do you make of that, brothers and sisters? So, Israelis themselves calling for Netanyahu to step down, whether it's over the hostages, whether it's calling for a general ceasefire. He got back into government on a ticket of national security, and a lot of Israelis feel that was breached with the Hamas attack on October 7th, obviously. We've done a couple, well, at least one video recently debating just how much the Israeli government knew about these attacks prior to them happening and how much they may or may not have known. But according to various press agencies and even a United States congressional panel, Israel did have prior knowledge about the attacks, though to what extent we don't know at the moment. But a lot of these people also be aware that there have been 2 rounds of talks, as I said, that have been rejected by Netanyahu. We have spoken before about just what a fanaticist this guy is, and last time around Hamas made a perfectly reasonable proposal that involved a 135-day ceasefire. It also involved exchanges of hostages, but that was rejected, and he just seems to be going down a one-way street. A lot of people think that Benjamin Netanyahu and his government won't be satisfied until everyone in Palestine is either dead or displaced. And considering what's been going on lately, that's really hard to argue against, you have to say. So that's just the latest breaking story there, although that came out last night, the first clip. And this is from a BBC News article, as I said, that came out earlier today. If you want to have a look through that, after you've listened to the stream, of course, and pick up a few more details about that. So we've got plenty of other clips to go through, as I said. There haven't just been protests happening in Israel, of course. They've been happening internationally as well, of course, here in the UK, as well as all over the world. We're going to take a look at some of the latest protests here in London. So this was again a massive turnout. Sorry if that's coming through a bit loud there. Just turn the volume down a little bit. It was a bit loud, wasn't it? Over 250,000 people again. I believe it's incredible to see this growing. The numbers growing, the support and calls for a ceasefire growing. But there is something particularly pertinent about the recent protests as well that we're going to go into after we just see the rest of this clip from some of the scenes. If you were at the protest, if you've been to a protest over this issue recently, I'd like to hear from you as well. Let us know in the chat or in the comments. If you're watching this on a replay, it's always great to hear from people. I've not been to one for a few weeks now, unfortunately. They're always on Saturdays where I am, and I've found myself tied up with a few other things, unfortunately. But of course, my support for Palestine and my call for a ceasefire remains strong as ever, of course. Just wanted to point out, as well as we watched these scenes, this was the first time that one of the protests in London went to the Israeli embassy as well, which was very interesting. There were a few arrests, a small handful, and you're talking about over 250,000 people here, so this was very much a peaceful march. I believe one or two of the arrestees were for having controversial signs that may or may not be considered anti-Semitic, and another one was for some form of criminal damage, I think. But again, just to emphasise, the vast majority of people who go to protest do so peacefully and without hate. This is, all for love and peace, really. Yeah, FSM's the dog. You've been to a few protests in Cardiff. You're saying in the chat there you can't always go. That's fantastic. Obviously, not everybody can go to every protest, depending on your circumstances. Some people can't go to any at all, but there are lots of ways to show your support for Palestine. I do actually know quite a few people who went down to this one, and they said that they were just blown away as usual by the amount of support. And on last week's live stream, we saw some amazing speeches from the march in London the other week, so we're going to take a look at a couple of recent speeches as well. I'm sure that some of our viewers, some of our listeners will be familiar with Andrew Feinstein, who's going to be standing in the same seat as Keir Starmer in the upcoming general election. He's going to be standing as an independent, I believe, so that's going to be interesting. Yeah, just there's another quick point about that constituency, that area as well, that I want to talk about. I'll just show you the clip from Andrew, because this is a brilliant clip. He's great with speeches and everything. So if you've not seen this was his bit. I can't remember if this was from the week before last or this week, but doesn't take anything away from how good of a performance it was.
So many people are now seeing Israel for what it is. And what it is right now is a genocidal rogue state. The ruling, we knew that Israel would ignore it. How did we know? Because they told us so. Just as how do we know they are perpetrating a genocide in Gaza? Because their president, their prime minister, the head of the IDF have all told us so. And the significance of this ruling is that South Africa will now have to go back to the court and demand immediate action against Israel, which within 2 hours had already started violating the ruling by continuing to slaughter innocent Palestinians. But there is an even broader importance of that ruling, is it makes it incredibly difficult legally for our governments in the UK, United States of America, Germany, and across Western Europe to continue to provide the weapons that are being used to slaughter Palestinians. So now we, as the people who pay our politicians' salaries, we have to tell them over and over again that what they're doing is not in our name. They've got to stop selling arms to Israel, and they've got to call a ceasefire now. And we have got to ensure that whenever there are elections, nobody who has not supported the ceasefire should be voted for unless they are behind the call for an immediate ceasefire and have been since this genocide started, and if they demand an end to British arms sales to Israel.
Okay, frozen out there. Quick plug for Migration Films, who put that clip together. You've got to agree with everything that he was saying there, and I think this coming general election is going to be pretty interesting, to say the least, especially in Holborn and St Pancras, where Andrew's going to be standing against Keir Starmer, as I said just before the start of the clip there. So there's another development in that area, like I said, and there was a recent by-election, not a parliamentary by-election, a council by-election, I should say, and the candidate for the Green Party took the seat from Labour. Now, the Green candidate is a Labour defector. She moved away from Labour. Sorry, I can't remember what year just off the top of my head. But since Keir Starmer took over the leadership of the Labour Party, at least. And that's been a bit of a surprise, especially in Holborn and St Pancras, where, of course, Keir Starmer's going to be standing. And that might be an interesting development. I do have my reservations about the next general election. I've got to tell you, obviously the Tories are going to lose seats. There's no doubt about that. But where are they going to go? Obviously, Starmer and Labour are assuming that there's going to be mass migration over to Labour. But as we saw in the two by-elections this week, that's not necessarily the case. In fact, in one of the two by-elections, per number, they actually lost votes compared to the last two general elections. But that's something we're going to go into a little bit later on. We did, of course, do a video about that as well during the week. So if you've not done that, please do check it out, as well as some of our other content. And if you're joining us on the stream tonight, just want to say a very warm welcome to you this evening. If you're not a subscriber, please hit the subscribe button. We're just coming up to, and I mean literally one away from 800 subscribers at the moment. So if you're not subscribed, please do help us get over that line. It's been great to receive so much support from you all recently. And hit the like, thumbs up button, and notification and all of that business. Right, on to the next clip. Excuse me. So you might have heard today, even probably off of the back of how much support Labour have lost over the stance on a ceasefire. We've seen Keir Starmer and David Lammy, who we're going to see a clip of just shortly, actually saying that they're calling for a ceasefire. It's very spurious. They appear to be, it's very obvious that they're sort of tiptoeing around the issue. Obviously, in the last vote in November, Keir Starmer and the Labour whips got a lot of Labour MPs to abstain, unfortunately, on the motion for a ceasefire. This time, there's going to be a new motion put forward by the SNP, as I'm sure a few of you will be aware. And yeah, a lot of close eyes on that one. And basically, what you're going to see in this clip is David Lammy just avoiding a straight question as to whether he'll support this next motion for a ceasefire or not. And it just goes to show how they, as in Labour, are trying to play both sides now that they can see the amount of support that's happening and the amount of people calling for a ceasefire. A lot of people say that Keir Starmer gets up in the morning, puts his finger in the air and just walks whichever way the wind's blowing. And that appears to be what he's going for again in this instance. So let's see what David Lammy's got to say anyway. This is a Laura Kussenberg interview from the BBC.
Will Labour support that motion in the Commons this week?
Well, we all want to see an end to the fighting. It must stop. Over 28,000 people have lost their lives, women and children.
Just straight away off the bat there, it could be boiled down to a simple yes/no question. Let's be honest. Do you support a ceasefire in Gaza? Yes. If it's a yes, then just say yes. I hope that Kussenberg's going to be pulling him up on avoiding the question here. We see so many times politicians getting away with not answering the question or straight up lying when something's put to them, and we'll go through the clip. I can't say that Laura Kussenberg is one of my preferred journalists' apologies for the source, but this is just a sort of example of the way that David Lammy and Keir Starmer are probably going to try and tiptoe around this issue all the way up to the vote that's later on next week.
You know, one of my children is adopted. 17,000 orphans now in Gaza. It's abominable. So, of course, people want to see a ceasefire. The question now is how. And to be absolutely clear,
she asked him if he'll be voting for the ceasefire, not if people want a ceasefire. We're getting into Howard territory with the old Newsnight clip there, having to ask the same question repeatedly. Just want to respond to one or two comments in the chat before I play the rest of the clip. Odin Allfather, yeah, curious as to whether the turnout for the election will be over 50%. Absolutely, the turnouts in the two by-elections this last week were really low, in the 30s. I think one of them was about 32-ish%, and the other one not too much higher than that. And it does appear to be a case of former Conservative voters staying at home rather than moving over to Labour. But yeah, we'll be going into that story in a little bit more detail later on. And FSM is the dog. You're absolutely right. There is no enthusiasm for Keith, none whatsoever. He's very much a typical charmless politician.
That when that ceasefire comes, we can't see the fighting restart.
So will you vote for it in the House of Commons this week?
That's why I've been here with Keir Starmer, speaking to the Saudi Arabians, the Qataris, European allies. I haven't seen the motion. It's not yet put down. We will scrutinise that motion, as is our way in Parliament. That will come in on Monday, I suspect, Tuesday, and we will take it from there. But look, let us be clear. Yes, we will have a vote in Parliament this week, but it's not that vote that will bring about a ceasefire. It's the diplomatic action. It's Hamas. It's Benjamin Netanyahu. It's Partners for Peace.
I think a lot of what he isn't saying here as well is, of course, the United Kingdom supplies aid and weapons, etc., to Israel. So if there was a ceasefire, that'd be losing business, literally losing business for the arms traders, this vile, evil trade that plagues our planet. And while they're currently rolling in it because of all of the conflicts around the world that we as a country have had a hand in assisting, a ceasefire would put a stop to that, and that's going to upset a lot of business people. Perhaps the same type of people that they might be approaching for donations, who knows? Just throwing that out there.
Saying the fighting must now stop.
David Lammy, the motion's actually been published already, and we've got it here. The SNP motion says this House calls for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and Israel. It notes with shock and distress that the death toll has now risen beyond 28,000.
That was actually, Kussenberg has a lot of faults, don't get me started, but that was actually a decent confrontation there, drawing him up on not answering the question. And then he, you can see his face there. He's not very impressed by the fact that he tried to say that he won't have a chance to see the motion until Monday or Tuesday, and she's got a copy of it right in front of her there. So, yeah.
That is the motion. It is crystal clear. Will Labour vote for it?
Well, look, I've seen that swirling around social media, but that's not a motion. That's just a form of words swirling around social media, and
Well,
I don't think that was the entirety that you read out. And it's why I say that, in all seriousness, given the tremendous loss of life, given the fact that we have also said in my party that we need now to have Palestinian recognition as a roadmap to that peace. We want to work with partners to achieve that. We've got to get to a two-state solution.
will Labour
Well, for those of you who aren't familiar, if you've not seen our video about it, do check it out. David Lammy abstained on the last vote for a ceasefire. And now he's got the gall to go on TV and pretend as though that's been his ambition, you know, the whole time. It's worth pointing out as well that David Lammy is in the internal Labour group, Labour Friends of Israel. Goodness knows, you know, what happens in terms of their dedication to public service when they're involved, you know, with so many nefarious people. Who knows the types of money that are being thrown around, but it's probably a lot. And the Israel lobbyists certainly do have a lot of influence in this country, unfortunately. So there were just over 140 in total Labour MPs who abstained on the last vote, around 55, 56 who voted for the motion, and that's just incredibly tragic to see. But who knows what's going to happen with this latest motion from the SNP. We'll definitely be keeping you up to speed with that. And yeah, as Odin's saying in the chat there, obfuscate and deflect, of course, the typical responses that we're seeing from a lot of Labour MPs. For a while, unfortunately, it's been the same kind of performances that we see from the Tories all too often, and this is even before they get into government. And it's really tragic to see. Just for a quick update on the numbers as well, over 30,000 people have been killed since October the 7th, and as always, tragically, over half of them are women and children. So I guess the only thing that Lammy said that I'd agree with there is obviously a vote for a ceasefire in UK Parliament wouldn't bring a stop to the conflict overnight by any means, but they're our representatives and we want to be on the right side of history at least, and we definitely don't want to see our taxes going towards funding this kind of genocide and occupation. Absolutely not. So let us know what you think about that as well. Just going to move on to the next clip because we've got quite a bit to get through this evening, and this will be a bit more uplifting than seeing David Lammy try and tiptoe around that issue. This is a really fantastic speech from Saturday in London's protest. Just going back to the London protest briefly, and Leanne Mohammed, who's standing as an independent candidate as well, made a fantastic speech. Like I said just earlier, I do have my reservations about the next general election for a lot of reasons, and one of the main ones is that people are really sick of the direction that Labour's going in, and I think that we're going to see a few unexpected gains and perhaps wins from independents in a lot of areas as well. So that's another reason why I don't think that Starmer's just going to stroll into an absolutely huge majority at the next election by any means. Yeah, just a quick question in the chat. Is that 130,000? If that's referring to the total number of deaths since October the 7th, no, it's 30,000 at the moment, unfortunately. I think it passed that mark just yesterday, unfortunately. But that's why we do all have to stand up and do what we can to call for a ceasefire And Odin says it's Thatcherite thinking. It's the policy that needs to change, and it's the presentation of policy. Exactly. Well, Starmer was asked not too long ago who influences him the most in terms of politics, and being the leader of the Labour Party, you might think he might come out with someone like Nye Bevin or Tony Benn, or even the very person whom he was named after, Sir Keir Hardie, who formed the Labour Party as a party uniting people, uniting workers, unions. And no, the first thing that came out of his mouth was he's always admired Margaret Thatcher. And of course, Tony Blair still has his fingers heavily on the strings in the Labour Party, despite not having been the Prime Minister for some time now. And of course, he was a great fan of hers. In fact, Thatcher herself said that her greatest achievement in politics was Tony Blair. Yeah, great point there. Thanks for pointing that out, Odin. Okay, so this is what Lian Mohammed had to say. And if you've not seen this yet, I think you'll be pretty blown away. It's a great speech. So, again, we'll keep our eyes on her campaign as an independent at the upcoming general election.
Thank you. On this global day of action, as Israel stands on the brink of a full-ground invasion into Rafah, there has never been a more critical time to raise your voice and act for Gaza. This is a genocide that will haunt us for the rest of our lives. So at the upcoming general election, it is imperative that we hold all those accountable that have allowed this to continue. No ceasefire, no vote. No ceasefire, no ceasefire. We must ensure that all those complicit in the suffering of the Palestinians are held responsible at the ballot box. Now you all have the opportunity to punish both of these parties, Labour and the Conservatives, who've wrought hell on the people of Gaza. They have given Israel diplomatic cover and have not questioned the supply of weaponry. They've spent months saying Israel has a right to self-defense, yet today they use clever words to show mild criticism of Israel. They talk of a sustained ceasefire, an Orwellian term to mean a ceasefire once Israel has completed its ethnic cleansing. In Ilford North, our message is no ceasefire, no vote. Let this be the rallying cry everywhere, a universal call for accountability and a steadfast commitment to justice. No ceasefire, no ceasefire, no ceasefire. Next week, the SNP will present another crucial ceasefire motion in Parliament, giving MPs the opportunity to make a resolute stand against genocide or find themselves on the wrong side of history. The choice is clear and it will be remembered. And never forget those who had the opportunity to endorse a ceasefire last year, but chose not to, even if they reconsider their stance in the upcoming week. We should never have to explain why the remains of a child hanging from a building wall with her legs blown off is wrong. We should never have to plead for a genocide, for a ceasefire 134 days into a genocide. Yet, in the face of such atrocities, we have the collective power to honour the memory of these 28,000 Palestinians killed, and we can do this in the upcoming general election. The Labour Party is sadly the greatest culprit here. They could have stopped this. They could have acted as an opposition. Instead, they chose to collude with Sunak and Biden. You cannot allow these people your vote. You must vote for independent or pro-Palestine candidates. Search them out if you can't organise and unite for your brothers and sisters in Gaza. The next election is about Gaza because Gaza signifies humanity. It signifies morality. It's come to symbolise all that is horrid and distorted in this world, to an unjust order that should no longer prevail. Do not let them get away with it. If you live in Ilford North, Bethnal Green and Stepney, Dewsbury, Birmingham, Ladypool, Slough, Leicester South, Wickham, if you live in any of these seats and more, vote them down. We have to make a change. Remember that Palestine is a cause and not a trend. And solidarity is a verb. Keep channeling your rage into action and bring your rage to the ballot box. Never forget, we are part of the global justice movement for Palestine in every corner of the world, uniting to show our leaders that we will never accept genocide in our name. We will keep building this movement. We will keep up this pressure to show our elected politicians that people in this country and around the world support a full, immediate and permanent ceasefire now. Ceasefire now. Ceasefire now. So when it comes to casting your vote, stand firm and do not forget, it is no ceasefire, no vote. No ceasefire. No ceasefire. Thank you.
Wow, what a great speech. And yeah, not being familiar with Leanne Mohammed before this clip. As I mentioned, she's standing as an independent, and will definitely be seeing how she gets on with that. That was that was amazing, and a great reception from the crowd there, of course. And that is going to be an issue pretty much for every Labour MP at the upcoming general election. This issue is very much in the public consciousness now, and it's clear which way that consciousness is heading, and it is support for a ceasefire and support for peace. So the no ceasefire, no votes thing that she mentioned there is not just going to be in London, it's going to be a nationwide thing, because goodness knows when the election itself is going to be this year. Hopefully there will have been progress or calls for a ceasefire and further negotiations. Obviously we don't want this to still be going on at the next general election. However, if it unfortunately is, it's going to be a major issue. Keir Starmer's not going to be able to wash that away. And yeah, Odin's right in the chat there. Sir Starmer's Blue Labour in name only party. And that is 100% accurate. They've dragged themselves back into the neoliberalism of Blair. You know, you can't even put a cigarette paper between Labour and the Tories at the moment. Seem to be following them move for move and hoping that they're going to get through on the next election purely by how long the Tories have been in, how sick people are of the Tories. But like I said, that might not be the case. We'll have to see. We're still waiting for Fishy Rishi to let us know when the election's going to be. So, of course, with all the political issues, we'll keep you up to speed with that here on My Left Eye. So, just for anyone who's joined us recently on the chat, you're very welcome here. Just want to say good evening to everyone tonight and remind you to hit all the subscribe, thumbs up buttons and things like that. Really does help to support the channel on the algorithm, and please do check out some of our longer form content as well. We are going to be starting the partnership membership program soon. We're just waiting for all of our stuff to get processed by YouTube, and then on the live stream we're going to have a few exclusive perks and things. We're going to have some static emojis. We're going to be doing another stream in the week for members only, things like that. So plenty of perks, and it's a great way to help to support the channel. Yeah, Nag, yes, Sep, absolutely. Can we drag Corbyn back? No, I don't think that's actually gonna. Well, you know, if only we could turn back time. Well, that's another issue. I don't think he'll ever stand as Labour leader again. Obviously, he's standing as an independent at the next general election. But if only, yeah, great point. But there are still one or two genuine socialists left in Labour, the likes of Zara Sultana, who we heard from at one of the demos the other week on last week's live streams. So there are still, you know, a few hopefuls, but as a party, it's been completely the Parliamentary Labour Party and CLP have been completely compromised now. At the moment, you can count the number of decent Labour MPs on one hand, unfortunately. And one example of the kind of Labour MP that we sort of don't like to see, as it were, one of the neoliberals actually got confronted whilst out canvassing this week, Rachel Reeves, and this is a clip that you might have seen going around social media. So she was confronted by a lady while she was out canvassing. It's so typical with MPs not to sort of address things and just try and walk off. So this is obviously over the issue of a ceasefire. Rachel Reeves, so robotic and you know, akin to Starmer. Not a lot of character going on there. So let's see what happened while she's out campaigning on the campaign trail.
Hi. I'm not actually from your local area, but obviously we've been following you for a really long time.
All right, nice to meet you.
And we just really wanted to understand.
We are about to start
Yeah, we've been
Yeah, no, that's
campaigning
really,
for
really good
Riaz.
because we want to make sure that Riaz and you do really well.
Yeah,
And it's really important to us that Labour wins this.
yeah, thanks.
It's been a long time waiting.
14 years.
The only thing is that we're really concerned, Rachel. What's your current position in respect of what's happening in Gaza at the
We
moment?
should have this conversation separately.
Well, we've tried to have this we've tried to have this conversation, and you've not been available.
Can we start the campaign session so that
It
we
doesn't work. We've tried, and it's not working.
Are you in my constituency?
We've tried through the mosques.
Are you
Archbishop Katani's been in touch.
Are you? Oh, well, I've seen Archbishop recently.
Yeah.
Are you in my constituency?
I'm not, but I'm a
Oh,
part.
right,
I'm a
okay.
part.
You
of,
were,
I'm
that's
a
probably
Muslim and I
why.
live in the UK
Yeah.
and I pay my taxes.
You're with us.
The office does speak to a wide range of constituents every week, and if you are a constituent,
Yeah,
and get
in
in
fact,
touch, we
I
do
was in
respond to
touch
every
with
single constituent.
Archbishop
Is there a reason
Katana
why-
last.
She's a deputy leader as well. The fact that this lady doesn't live in Rachel Reeves' constituency doesn't change anything that's happening in Gaza, or doesn't affect how serious the questions being put to her are. And this is a, again, very Tory-esque amount of deflection that we're going to see in this clip here. She doesn't show an ounce of remorse. She doesn't show an ounce of emotion, even on a human level. And as it goes into the clip, she's going to try to appeal to her as a mother as well. But people like Reeves, people like Starmer, they're just robots.
Is there a reason why you can't answer the
Because I
question?
have a huge number of people contact me, and my surgeries are for constituents.
So does
and
that mean
their
that every
issues.
time a different person contacts you, you have a different answer?
No.
Because we just simply want one
No,
answer.
that's selling up.
Sorry,
Do you
we're
know
going to go and John.
They're only simple questions.
You've got to speak to people in the constituency.
Rachel, no, that's fine. So we'll stay with you and we'll ask your constituents what they think about it.
I don't think that's...
It's all right. There's just simple questions like, how do you feel about Israel turning off the water? Rachel, would you be able to live without water?
My understanding
Just
is
for
that
one
children in
day,
Israel at
without
the moment,
water?
They're having to eat grain. Is that correct, Rachel?
Rachel, please, can you just answer the question whilst
Well, we know what Starmer's answer to that was. He said that Israel did have the right to turn off water and turn off electricity, as you're probably more than familiar with. Hopefully that clip is going to haunt him forever, just like the same question being put to Reeves is pretty haunting on this trip around a constituency. I'll just let the clip play to the end here. But yeah, thanks. Yeah, run. You're absolutely right, Odin. Thanks for your comments in the chat. I do get a kind of kick out of seeing people confront MPs, and as we get closer to the election, I'm sure that we're going to see more of this kind of thing coming about. But yeah.
you voted against the ceasefire on the 15th of November? Rachel, what is your position regarding the ceasefire now? Has your stance changed? Rachel, can we talk to you?
We're
Just
trying
answer our questions, Rachel. It's just simple. Just answer the question. How could you live without water, Rachel? Have you had a glass of water today? Them children haven't had a glass of water. The children are digging holes for water, Rachel. It's just so sad, Rachel. How would you like to dig the children out of under rubble? Have you got children, Rachel? I've got a daughter. I've got a 19-year-old daughter. I couldn't imagine burying her, Rachel. Tell me how you'd feel. Rachel, please, tell us how you'd feel. It's really important, Rachel. We need to know. We need to know what's going on. How do you feel? Why did you not vote for a ceasefire? Rachel, where are you going? Rachel, Israel's got a right to defend, but Palestine hasn't, Rachel. Why, Rachel? Why are Palestinians lesser people? Where are you going, Rachel? Don't leave, Rachel. Talk to us. We want to talk in a civilized conversation, Rachel. Rachel, why wouldn't you talk? Rachel, just answer the questions. How can you vote for her? How can you be with the Labour Party? This is a humanitarian issue. Yeah, this is a humanitarian.
She is out of there. She's gone. And she's left the rest of her campaign team behind to pick up the pieces for her as well. And just won't even address a single thing that this lady's saying. And she was being polite. The pretty simple questions. What is the stance on a ceasefire now? Of course, probably don't need reminding that she was another abstainee on the vote. Let's see how her campaign team manage it, picking up what's left after that disaster of her public appearance.
Issue. How could you possibly walk with that woman? Sisters, we're asking a question. Don't walk away.
Stop recording first of all, because those questions are not my part of you. And
So-
why
No, sister, we're not having a go. We just want to know.
are not pushing for a ceasefire.
Position
What's your name, sir?
to make Rachel talk to you. It's not.
Do you know what it is, sir? It's all about hearts and souls.
All I was
right?
going to do
You
is
know,
knock on
people,
some
it's all
doors
about hearts and
and
souls.
ask them to vote for Riaz Ahmed.
Yeah.
That's all.
It's hearts and souls and hearts and souls. She's not going to win hearts
Please
and
don't
souls.
assume that everyone in the
It's the
Labour
same.
Party.
Yeah, we understand
We're not that
doesn't
naive
support
to
a
assume
ceasefire
that
because
everybody's,
a
but
lot
we.
of people. I certainly support
Yeah.
a ceasefire.
Okay.
And if I'd been an MP, which obviously I'm not,
And
I would have
that's
voted
because
for a
you're human,
ceasefire.
and that's because.
That doesn't make any sense, mate, because if you support the Labour Party and they don't represent what you believe in when they go to vote, then what is the point in supporting the party? If, you've always got to remember when you run it up the chain, what do they do when it really matters? What do they do in parliamentary votes? And what do they say about the issues? That's totally contradictory. Is anyone who's listening a former Labour member, by the way? I don't mind sharing with you that I am, and all the circumstances why I chose to leave. It's quite some time ago now. But, yeah, these people really do have to consider what it is that they're going out there and campaigning for. I know that most of the time political parties aren't going to match your views entirely, but on issues like this, surely it's got a massive amount of gravity behind deciding which party people choose to support. Or is this man just happy to dig his head in the sand? Yeah. Let's hear the rest of what he's got to say. Just to be fair, we'll let him have his say.
You're human, and that's all we wanted to ask
And
Rachel.
I think
Yes.
What Labour Party members are trying to do is push all Labour MPs into a position where they support a ceasefire, and I think that I hope and I think that the position.
Well, if you ask Rachel Reeves, mate, she'll probably just jump in a car and bugger off.
of the Labour Party front bench will change, but we'll
But
see on that.
when it's
But
too
I
late?
think
It can't happen after
it can't
the
happen
election.
soon enough.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there's people
I mean,
dying every day.
we're over
I know
4
that,
months
I know
in.
that.
Yeah.
But,
We feel
there we
the
are.
exact same way about this as you guys, but we just feel as if we're going about putting on the pressure in a different way. Within the party, we want to put on.
But do you feel
pressure,
comfortable
and
with
we
supporting
understand-
Rachel? She didn't even answer the question. She's refraining from answering. That makes her complicit in genocide.
I don't consider Rachel Reeves a close friend, but I think in many things we are allies, and I think the best way
Rob,
for us
Mary,
to get.
let's go. We're going to continue with the
Campaign.
session.
Go.
Yeah, we're just going to continue with the session.
You just have to
We just hope you'll think about some of the
Just
things that
follow
we've
me.
impressed
Don't
upon
you
you
think
guys
we don't
today,
think-
and just think of it where
You
we're
have to
coming from.
understand, you know, that when
we
you
want
want
to continue voting Labour.
I think
Our
about it
parents
all the
voted,
time.
but whether
I'm a
we will
member-
or not now
I'm a
is
member of Unite the
questionable.
Union.
It's questionable.
We support the Palestine Solidarity Campaign. We
Why
support
would you walk
BDS.
away?
Okay.
She was not happy.
Whether we will now vote Labour or not is
I think I'm
highly
walking away
questionable.
because
We're
this
frustrated.
filming is very intimidating.
Well, yeah. I mean, that was only, comedic from a cringeworthy point of view, but Reeves just absolutely, chickening away there. You got to say, yeah, that was pretty funny, and it's not just me trying to call Rachel Reeves out here. The next clip is from someone I'm sure you will have seen before, Yanis Varoufakis, fantastic sociologist and public commentarian that he is, and he absolutely nails down people like Rachel Reeves, Keir Starmer, and what's currently going on in the Labour Party. The thing is, the Tories, that they're going to be, absolute bastards, pardon my French, and they wear their heart on their sleeve. They almost seem proud of it with this, Etonian Bullingdon Boys Club thing that they have in the Tories and whatnot. But with Labour, they do it under the guise of pretending to be a democratic socialist party when they're far from it under Keir Starmer. They've been far from it for the last, 4 years. And it's awful to see, because in 2019, people did have real hope. And, of course, a lot of voters got carried away with the Brexit thing. And that was, again, Keir Starmer threw Corbyn under a bus in doing an unannounced U-turn on the policy on a second referendum, saying that Labour would back a second referendum. And a lot of voters felt that was undemocratic, but Starmer obviously knew what he was doing. He, set Labour up to fail at the last election. Question in the chat from Nagyes Zep. Do you think, guys, the pro-Palestinian Labour members will form a new party before the election? Possibly. I do know that there are a lot of grassroots parties now that have a lot of former Labour members in them. For example, the Trade Union Socialist Coalition is going to be on a lot of ballot papers this time around. There's a few other grassroots parties around the country, like the Breakthrough Party, the Northern Independence Party, and a lot of other grassroots socialist parties contain former Labour members. But I don't think there will be some sort of literal alternative Labour set up with the word Labour in the title of the party. But it's obvious that, this massive purge on the left that we've seen under Starmer has left a lot of socialists feeling disenfranchised. So they've gone back to grassroots because the Labour Party is completely compromised at the moment. And I almost have to feel sorry for these people who have to go out and campaign for Labour now and defend Rachel Reeves's position in this example. Like the guy on the right there was saying, he's part of Unite, he's part of a union, which I think is a great thing. I think anyone who works should be in a union, and they support a ceasefire, but when you go up the chain, he personally might support a ceasefire. But again, just look at what he's representing, and that's why, yeah. FSM's the dog, independents and Greens. I think again, yeah, just to remind you, I think we're going to see at least one or two surprising gains from them in the upcoming election. The Greens only have one seat at the moment. Obviously, first past the post is completely outdated as a voting system. They got just under 1 million votes and only got one seat, the Green Party. But I think we might see them nick one or two, as well as some other independents. There's a lot of swing seats out there as well. Mr. Horse, thanks a lot for your comment. Thanks a lot for joining us tonight. Please do give my regards to Mrs. Horse as well. Yeah, thanks a lot for your comment, and it's great to see so many people here tonight on the chat and on the stream as well. Odin Allfather, yeah, just reading your comment. There's only one man with the readability, but he won't start a party. I believe that is JC. Are you referring to the not, of course, that JC, the great Jeremy Corbyn? And he obviously has the Peace and Justice organisation project, Peace and Justice project, I should say. And there have been mutterings throughout the last sort of 18 months as to whether he would change it into a party, whether he would form a political party, either under the Peace and Justice project banner or separately. That doesn't look like it'll be the case at the moment. Unfortunately, you can only vote for Jeremy Corbyn if you're going to be living in North Islington at the next election. But I think you've got to say he's going to win the seat, even after Starmer threw Labour under a bus, and there was obviously the massive anti-Semitism scam thrown on top of that, and the way that the media rinsed Corbyn out as well. But he still managed to hold a decent majority in his seat, even though he lost votes. I would be very, very, very shocked and surprised to see him lose that seat at the next general election. Yeah, no doubt. But it would be great to see any socialist, whether it's an independent or grassroots party, really put the mud in Starmer's eye at the next general election. But that remains to be seen. We're still waiting on the date from Sunak. So yeah, thanks a lot for your comments there. So let's take a look at this clip from Yanis Varoufakis, where he's going to call out Starmer and Rachel Reeves here, just on the old wolf in sheep's clothing, which they definitely appear to be at the moment.
The Labour Party has never had this degree of authoritarianism in its midst. You know, even under Tony Blair, there were people like Tony Benn and Jeremy Corbyn. They were never thrown out. There was this mayor in North England, I don't remember his name, who attended a screening of Ken Loach's fantastic movie.
Jamie Driscoll.
And he was still thrown out.
Yeah.
That's fascism. Rachel Reeves has adopted this magnificent toxic lie of austerity before moving to 11 Downing Street. Mm-hmm. So what is she going to do when she moves in there? I mean, my goodness. Spare us of this Labour Party. I simply don't think there is much happening between his ears, except a burning ambition to move into 10 Downing Street.
Power.
I have seen nothing ever coming from him which can be imagined as empirical evidence that there is any analytical thinking going on in his brain, in his mind. Many people say to me, come on, Yanis, but Labour will be better than the Tories. No, not necessarily. Keir Starmer has been complicit in the genocide in Gaza from day one to this very moment when we're chatting. So why would the Tory government be worse? And you know what? I prefer to have bastards in power who claim to be bastards representing the aristocracy than bastards in power who claim to be representing the working class.
Fantastic point, especially at the end there. So yeah, just a quick shout out to Politics Joe as well. That's a clip from their social media as well. If you don't follow Politics Joe as well, I do highly recommend them. They're a pretty decent socialist channel as well. Thanks a lot for being with us here on the My Left Eye live stream tonight as well. Yanis Varoufakis is always so on point. He's always fantastic when he's interviewed or giving speeches, and you can't argue with anything he's said about the Labour Party there. But that point at the end, at least with the Tories, you know what you're getting. But the way that Labour are trying to trick people into thinking that they're all right, or even saying that they're democratic socialist, is absolutely ridiculous. Explorer02, thanks a lot for your comment. Labour Party are wearing blue, and they are Tories, yeah. Both the leaders of the main opposition parties in England knighted, you know, Sir Ed Davey, Sir Keir Starmer. We're surrounded by establishment-focused leaders, and there aren't nearly enough real socialists representing people at the moment. And Nagyasep says in the chat, your fear about the Green Party is that they aren't necessarily left-leaning on social issues. Yeah, I know there have been one or two debates over that, especially with matters of austerity and cuts and a lot of controversy. It's difficult to tell with the Green Party. Obviously, they've never been in power. I'm not sure if they've actually put out their official manifesto yet. I think most parties will be waiting until the date of the elections announced before they put out the manifestos. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see. But it is worth pointing out that the Green Party did vote for the motion on a ceasefire. So we'll just have to wait until the manifestos come out, I guess. I don't think the Labour Party's manifesto will be too much of a great read. Certainly not as good as it was back in 2019. And obviously we've mentioned him a couple of times on the channel already and in the comments, so I can take the hints. I can feel the elbow in my ribs there. We're going to see a little bit from what Corbyn has had to say lately on the issue of Gaza, Gaza's occupation. And first of all, we're going to see him giving a speech, and then he also appeared in the Council of Europe. So we're going to see two clips from Corbyn, who's always obviously been outspoken on this issue. So this is the latest about what he's got to say. And it's definitely better than having to sit and listen to Keir Starmer, believe me.
There is something inside of me that just makes me feel sick to the stomach today when the Netanyahu government in Tel Aviv is saying it is time for the Israeli Defense Force to take military action to drive the Palestinian people out of Rafah through a closed border. There's 1 million there, dying from diarrhea, dying from hunger, dying from operations that cannot be performed because there's no anaesthetic, and people committing suicide because they can't see any other way forward. 1 million people in a physical prison being bombed by weapons supplied by Britain and the United States that are killing wholly innocent people at the moment. There is nothing more disgusting I can think of than what we're witnessing on our screens at the present time.
100%, and that clip comes from Morning Star Online, as you can see there, and you could really hear the emotion in Jeremy's voice there during that clip. The statistics are horrifying. They're horrifying, and when I'm doing research for the channel, I have to be honest with you, I do often come across some pictures or videos that really, you know, I've thought I'm going to throw up quite a few times, to be honest, because some of the footage and some of the pictures, obviously I'm not going to be showing any of those on the live stream tonight, but they really are so graphic, and one or two of them have been referred to in the clips as well, and you heard the detail of what Corbyn had to say there about the awful circumstances in which people are dying, and it does make it really does make you ashamed to see your representatives putting themselves on the wrong side of history, as Corbyn said there. And so we're going to see his appearance at the Council of Europe as well. That's just here, bear with me 1 second.
Events on October the 7th were unbelievably awful and appalling, and our hearts have to go out to all the families and loved ones of those that either disappeared or were killed on that day. Whoever the person is that's been killed, there is grief amongst others. A mother grieves for a lost son or a lost daughter, whatever their religion, whatever their nationality. And the events since October the 7th of the bombardment of Gaza and the continued destruction of all life there have not brought anybody back, but have created more bitterness and more hatred. And there has to be a way forward. After October the 7th, the General Secretary of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, said this didn't all come from nowhere and drew to attention the 75 years of occupation, the numbers of Palestinian refugees that are in camps in Jordan, in Lebanon, in Syria and other places, and of course the occupation of the West Bank and the continued settlement policy. These issues have to be addressed if to ensure there is a long-term sustainable peace within the region. If there isn't a sustainable peace, so far as the Palestinian people are concerned, then this will lead to other conflicts that it already is, in the case of Yemen and the growing militarization of the whole region. Our job surely has to be to search for peace, and you achieve that peace through searching for justice. I was at the International Court of Justice 2 weeks ago to listen to the South African application, where they made an application under the Genocide Convention. And they pointed out that the government of Israel, particularly Prime Minister Netanyahu, has made statements about the destruction of Gaza, destruction of all life in Gaza, and the expulsion of the population of Gaza. After October the 7th, they were told to move south to a place of safety. They moved south to what they believed to be a place of safety and were promptly bombed.
This is one of the main things. Obviously, there was, Jeremy's pointed out a lot there, but every safe zone, so-called safe zone so far, has been attacked. And Mr. Horse, you make a great point there in the comments. Look what we could have had. Look what we could have had for the last 5 years if people had gotten Brexit out of their heads or just woke up and realised that they were being conned by Johnson, which unfortunately people didn't. And it's just, again, so tragic to see. I mean, over 1.5 million people, believe it is now, have been forced into the south. And everywhere they go, they're attacked, they get shot, they get shelled. Day after day. And there are no safe zones. There's nowhere for them to go. It's unbelievable, unbelievable. Sorry, sometimes I find myself lost for words. I'll just play the rest of the clip.
And there are now 1 million people corralled around the Rafah crossing, desperate for support, desperate for aid, and desperate for some degree of hope. And so we look forward to what the International Court of Justice is going to say about this. We also have to recognise that the number of people who have lost their lives is horrendous. 25,000 known to be dead, probably 8,000 to 10,000 bodies will be found under the rubble, and many now dying of starvation, of dehydration, of diarrhoea, and all those wholly preventable conditions. So surely us, as the Council of Europe, the custodians of the European Convention on Human Rights, a body that represents people all over this continent, can do one good thing today, and simply say there must be an unconditional ceasefire now, so that aid can get in to support the people of Palestine, the people of Gaza. But above all, we can then achieve a long-term peace, which means justice for the people of Palestine and an end to the occupation.
And of course, Sunak has stated in the past that the European Convention on Human Rights are preventing the Tories from achieving their goals. And these are exactly the kind of goals that we're talking about, that is, funding and arming Israel. Unbelievable. But that was, again, spot on from Jeremy Corbyn, as always. There. So, going to try and lighten the mood just a little bit now. I don't know if you're familiar with Jonathan Pye. He's a great comedian, and I think he's doing a stand-up tour at the moment as well. So he's always great. If you've not seen his latest clip denouncing Sunak, then that's what's coming up there. But hopefully more of the world's political bodies, major political bodies, the United Nations, the European Convention on Human Rights, etc., will be able to put Israel in an increasingly difficult political situation that they won't be able to back down from, because the eyes of the world are on this. And yeah, we all want to be on the right side of history, don't we? So yeah, Jonathan Pye, this is his latest video. I've been a fan of his for a while now, so if you've not seen this before, it's a bit from him.
A week of economic woes for the government. However, as recession hits the UK, the Prime Minister says his economic plan has started to deliver. Deliver what? A shit in the post? An eviction notice? A terminal cancer diagnosis? What exactly is it you're delivering, Mr. Sunak? What you appear to be delivering is a recession. What you're delivering is a record 2.1 million people regularly using food banks, with the number of children in food poverty doubling in the last year. 7.6 million patients on NHS waiting lists. This is not a record to be proud of. It's a source of national shame. What are you delivering, Mr. Sunak? Dead flowers, gone off milk, an aborted fetus? What you're delivering, Mr. Sunak, is profit. Whilst 7 million households choose to go without heating, British Gas sees a tenfold leap in profits, from 72 million to 751 million. 751 million pounds, which is just a tiny bit more than the Prime Minister and his wife's net worth. Welcome to the last 14 years, with an economy run by a series of multi-millionaire grifters, one of which was a known tax dodger, one of which blew a £30 billion hole in the economy, and if the rumours are to be believed, the present multi-millionaire Chancellor is about to deliver further cuts to public services in favour of tax cuts. I mean, when in the last 14 years have you not been cutting public services? There's nothing left to cut. Social care, health care, child care, elderly care, any care about anything whatsoever, unless it's profit. All you care about is profit, business. And I mean big business, not small business. Last year, the UK had the most small business insolvencies since the 2008 crash. The 2008 crash that Rishi Sunak helped cause and profited from greatly. Look it up. Yeah, there's nothing left to cut. The rail system doesn't work, it's fucked. Oh, no, it isn't. Look at these profits. The water and sewage system in this country doesn't work. No one voted for Brexit so they could take their daily morning dump, safe in the knowledge it'll be floating in the English Channel by tea time. Yeah, but look at these profits. What are you delivering on? Education, making a conscious choice not to invest in education to the point where schools are crumbling, whilst massively racking up the private cost of further education, and at the same time giving private schools tax breaks, when most of your education policy revolves around attempting to stop teachers' rights to strike. You're not delivering on education. What are you delivering on? Help for the most needy? When you outsource the benefits office and the benefits helpline to a private company whose main motivation is profit, when the private sector decides who deserves help and who doesn't, the government is essentially saying it can't do its job, that it's given up on delivering. We are constantly being told by multi-millionaires that there isn't enough money. That if you can't live off 40p a day, you're not trying hard enough. That homelessness and destitution is a lifestyle choice. There isn't any money. Although they're perfectly happy spending 1.5 billion on a barge full of listeria and 400 million on Rwanda just for shits and giggles and a favourable headline in the Daily Telegraph. 400 million! But apparently, when it comes to child poverty, there isn't any money. We all need to tighten our belts. The only thing you are delivering is record profits. But hey, when all your chums and donors and family are millionaires and billionaires, I guess it makes sense to keep them happy, because apparently taxing billionaires is actually worse for the economy. And if you don't believe me, just ask a billionaire. They all agree. The party of fiscal responsibility makes me want to puke. Well, more bad news for the Prime Minister. The two by-elections...
Yeah, great stuff from Jonathan Pye, as always there. I wish our real news reporters were more like Jonathan Pye. Let's get people like that in, rather than the absolute, gutter press that we've got at the moment. And, well, we're going to be going on to look at one or two examples of good and bad press in a moment. But if you're not following Jonathan Pye's stuff already, please do so as well. And he was spot on there. Obviously, the Tories have always been about austerity. We've seen so much lack of investment in public services. They've been gutted out for almost 15 years now. And whenever you bring this up with them, you'll hear responses including words like growth and GDP. And the thing that politicians and capitalists alike can never tell us is the magic number on GDP, where it reaches a certain figure and everybody is housed and we have full employment and clean water and all of the basic needs, the basic things that people should have a right to have in this country. And they just can't seem to come up with it. They think it's going to be ever-increasing profits, ever-increasing growth, and it's not. And they wonder why we're in such crap at the moment, and it's through lack of public investment. And that's the word, the key word, investment. Society pays it back. It creates jobs. It helps people out of dire financial situations. And yeah, like Odin says in the chat, it's not profits, it's ever increasing profits. They think it can just keep going up and up and up, and the top, what do you call it, the trickle down economics, it's all fake, it's all crap. We know that they're talking rubbish. Like Jonathan Pye said in his bit there, the only people they ever ask about this is the billionaires themselves. What do you think that they're going to say? Oh no, of course we got way too much money. Just divvy this out to our employees and we'll put some more into a massive tax pot to help out society in general. No, they're not. They're going to act as though they're entitled, but don't forget, they just reap the profits. They don't do the work. People like Jeff Bezos don't pick every order from Amazon and drive every lorry or pack every box. Just looking at one or two of the other comments there, and yeah, it's not just been for 15 years, it's been since Thatcher, and it's been a constant theme. But how long have we lived under Thatcherism? I would argue that we've never really gotten away from it ever since she took over way back in 1979. And there you go. Obviously, the unions have been decimated since then, and we've seen so many public service cuts. We've seen the NHS gutted, of course, obviously. Keir Starmer's party would continue that. Don't get me started on Shadow Health Secretary Wes Streeton and what his grubby little plans might be like, but I can assure you they're far from bringing the NHS back into full public ownership. And that's just, sums up the issue. We're stuck between the devil and the deep blue sea in terms of political parties, main political parties, but we do have a chance at the next election to remind these politicians that we do have a choice in this country. It's not like voting in America, where it's either Republicans or Democrats. We're gonna see some gains from independents as well, like I was saying earlier. Yeah, thanks a lot, Nicola, for your point there. You were extremely upset that the miners caved in despite waging the greatest battles against Thatcher, but when they caved in, that set the most dangerous message of all. Yeah, absolutely. And my members of my family went out to protest against Margaret Thatcher as well, from the unions that they were in. And again, there were a lot of underhanded tactics in that union dispute. And I was watching a documentary. I think it was on iPlayer just recently about all of that, and it had footage that hadn't been shown before. And when you saw things like Orgreave, for example, with a massive clash between strikers and the police there, it really does put it into light. So do check that out if you've not seen it as well. And they both, yeah, they're all in it together, whether they red Tories, blue Tories, whatever colour Tories going to be lined up at the next election. Anyway, I think that's enough of a freeze frame free plug for Jonathan Pye. He is on tour as well, so do keep an eye out for him if he's going to be performing close to you. We're going to go back to some of the protests over Palestine now. Over to the States, and these are just a couple of the shorts that I've compiled this week from Democracy Now's footage of the latest news from Gaza, which is, of course, always fantastic. So there were students protesting as well, and they had a really long sit-in protest that recently came to a conclusion, so we're going to hear about that.
Here in New York, hundreds of Palestinian rights activists occupied the Museum of Modern Art Saturday, forcing the museum to close to the public. Protesters unfurled massive banners and handed out mock MoMA pamphlets in which they called out museum trustees for their investments in Israeli weaponry and other industries. Another protest was organized outside the Brooklyn Museum. The actions came as an open letter signed by over 100 artists and other cultural workers condemned the, quote, disgraceful silence of our institutions as
slight technical difficulty there. The clip cut off a bit early. Apologies about that, but that was a protest at the Museum of Modern Art. Obviously, we did an episode recently, and we talked about it last week on the live stream about boycotts, about company boycotts, and even institutions like museums. You really have to call them out if they've been funding this Israeli occupation and genocide. So that was just one example of that, and there were quite a few arrests there at that protest as well, as hundreds of people were demonstrating there. And then there was another protest, the sustained one I just mentioned a moment ago at Stanford University, which came to a conclusion lately. So let's have a look what happened at the sit-in, and there have been quite a few arrests during that as well. Unfortunately, some of the protesters got assaulted as well during the lengthy protest.
Students at Stanford University are ending a months-long sit-in to demand the university call for a ceasefire in Gaza and divest from Israeli companies complicit in war crimes, among other things. Stanford officials had started cracking down on the action, which began in October, threatening to arrest and discipline students who camped out on campus. But the school finally agreed to 2 meetings with the group to discuss their demands, leading to the decision to disband the longest continuous sit-in in Stanford's history.
Well, that certainly seems to have got a result. You know, they've started to actually negotiate with them, and that just goes to show, you know, why people coming together in solidarity can be really effective. And the longest sit-in at the university's history, and I'm sure that, you know, like a lot of American universities, they have a great history of protest. If you go back to the peace movement of the 1960s right through to now I'm sure you'll find many examples of that, so that's really impressive considering everything that's been going on, probably even since before the 1960s as well, now that I'll mention it. And that's a brilliant achievement that they've actually managed to get some of the demands met. So yeah, when we all come together, when we all join in solidarity, it just goes to show what we can achieve as well. Just looking over a couple of the latest comments as well. Nicola's mentioned the Rochdale by-election. Yeah, obviously that's going to be coming up in just a couple of weeks, and there's been so much attention on that. We mentioned that quite a bit on the channel recently as well. George Galloway seems to be on fire in Rochdale. Nicola says he really is motivating people by speaking positively about what can be done, not only in Rochdale but across the country. There's more to George Galloway than just supporting Palestinians. He's never forgotten the people. We need a vote for left-leaning independent candidates and who are members of smaller parties as well. So yeah, I do agree with that. There has been a lot of attention drawn to George Galloway. There's another really good independent candidate there as well, Mark Coleman, who also supports the ceasefire as well. I can't say that I agree with everything that George Galloway says, but certainly on the topic of war and occupation, even going right back to the Second Gulf War and the occupation of Iraq, I do agree with what he says about that. I can't say that I agree with his stance on environmental issues. I do have to point out he does have a bit of a reputation for being a little bit of a climate denier, but it goes to show certainly that independents can stand up to the Tories and Labour as well, even though George Galloway is representing the Workers' Party of Britain, of course. But we could see this throughout the country as well, and it looks as though Labour could really be seriously sweating. You know, obviously, speaking honestly, I think George Galloway out of the main parties will get the best result, and we'll just have to see whether he can actually, you know, win the seat. But we'll definitely be paying a lot of attention to that by-election, no doubt. Yeah, of course. So there were a couple of examples, like I said, about what we're seeing here in the British media, in the British press recently, and I've got two examples here of call-in shows on LBC. Sure you're familiar with the LBC news channel, and believe me, they've had some real, should we say, out there views on the phone-in shows from the time that I've been watching them. But this one sort of really takes the biscuit, because the host was really taken back with just how ignorant these comments were. But I'm going to give you a good example as well of someone actually managing to get onto a call-in show and speak the truth without being interrupted, because how many times do we see legitimate points get shouted down or interrupted or whatever? I mean, for those of you who still watch shows like Question Time and whatnot, I'm sure that you'll see that really often. But these are the two clips anyway, so we'll see. I mean, I'm not sure what this guy is all about, but he doesn't seem to be aware of what Israel and the IDF are up to. And towards the end of the clip, he's going to try and claim that Israel has got the most moral army in the world, and that just really beggars belief. And well, you'll see from the reaction from even the host. There are one or two people who present LBC who are okay, I guess, but I can't say that I'm really raving about the sort of host that they have and what they're all about in general for various reasons. But occasionally you can find a bit of wheat among the chaff, and this is just a couple of things that I came across. I came across the clips on social media recently, so I want to know what you think about them.
28,000 people have died, or if you're not prepared to accept that figure, I imagine you are going to accept that thousands of civilians have died. Will you at least concede that?
I don't know. I never counted them.
That's not a good start. You denying the number of people who've been killed because you haven't personally counted them is no, not off to a great start at all.
Are you being serious, James? Have you watched the same? Have you watched the same? Have you watched the same TV reports that me and everybody else is watching at the moment?
I don't know how many people have died. All I
Right.
know is they started a war, and Israel will finish it
At any cost. Is that your view?
at any cost, and the harder, the better.
He seems to be from this all started on the October the 7th camp. Of course, we know that that's not true. Israel have been occupying Palestine for 75 years now. He certainly doesn't seem to be aware that this has been going on for some time. He doesn't seem to be familiar with things like the Nakba and all the other atrocities that have happened over those 75 years. But ignorance is bliss to people like this, unfortunately. Even the host can't believe it. Sorry, I've forgotten a name off the top of my head. If you know this LBC host name, please do let me know in the comments. But I'm not that much of a regular viewer, I must be honest.
I'm genuinely shocked by what you're saying, James. I have to be honest. I'm really shocked.
Well,
because
if
do you think?
England-
Hang on a minute. Do you think children are responsible for Hamas's actions that day?
If England
Just, it's a really
had
simple question. Do you
12,000
think
deaths,
very simple question? Do you think Palestinian children are
definitely
responsible?
not. Definitely not.
Children are not responsible for Hamas's actions.
Definitely not.
We agree on that. In which case, given
The children are innocent.
right, given the fact that a disproportionate number of children, Palestinian children, are being killed by the way in which Israel is conducting its military operation, would you not question how Israel is conducting that military operation?
Israel is the most moral army in the world. They warn the civilians to go out of area. What other army does this?
Well, yeah, that beggars belief. It really does. It really does. To claim that Israel has the most moral army in the world is unbelievable. Totally ignorant. And FSM is the dog. Thanks for that. Is it Sanjita or Mixkajar? I'm not pronouncing that right, surely. Apologies if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly as well. And yeah, Explorer. Good point there about Fiona Bruce. She's ruined question time. The audience does not argue or debate. She panics, and she certainly does. Let's not forget that her husband is well known as being a Tory donor, and she's one of the hosts who's notorious for interrupting someone making a perfectly legitimate critique of the Tories. And she's used to just let me stop you there while I point my pen at you a little bit and wave my hand. We do have to point out that such and such happened, which means that the Tories aren't so bad. And yeah, that's cringe. I can't say I've really been a fan of Question Time, or watched it regularly, I should say, for a long time now. And it's for reasons like that. And the panels that they have are generally awful, and the only time you find a genuine socialist on there, it'll tend to be an actor or an author or something like this. You won't find you very rarely find a socialist from a grassroots party, or definitely not a socialist from the Labour Party appearing on BBC's Question Time, and that's just another one of the bad examples. Do have another clip though to show you from LBC, as I said, and fortunately this caller is completely spot on with what they're saying, and surprisingly it's Nick Ferrari who's the host, and he's normally pretty proficient in interrupting, and he does let the caller have the say, which is a bit more of a positive thing.
28,000 people have died, or if you're not prepared to accept that figure,
Sorry about that. That's the wrong clip. Those of you watching closely might have noticed. Okay.
To be honest, I find it very frustrating that anti-Semitism is being weaponized and used against people who criticize Israel. As a Jew myself, I know what genuine anti-Semitism is, and it's a persecution of Jews and Muslims, etc., other Semite, races, etc., for being Jewish. Criticizing the state of Israel for the genocide and war crimes they've committed against Palestinians for 75 years is not anti-Semitism. And I am sick of that term being used when it suits people, and the goalposts being moved on it just for the simple fact of criticising a state. Obviously, what happened on October the 7th was horrendous, but it is a result of 75 years of persecution and lack of freedom for a people that lived in the land and that us as the Brits gave without any, permission or any kind of solidation, etc. And it's just very, very.
I find it quite surreal that Ferrari's letting this be said, and I do agree with a lot of what Nick Ferrari says, believe me, but the fact that he's letting this be said on what is, quite a big media outlet, the LBC, I think it's a bit more refreshing than the crap that we normally get.
Frustrating that.
But for the student at university in Manchester or Nottingham or Leeds or wherever, it's not fair to that young person, is it? They weren't.
Of course. And if you are a student and you're being persecuted for being Jewish or facing backlash as a result of what Israel's doing, then of course it's not right. But even a lot of people in the Jewish community ourselves, we are even shamed for criticising Israel for what we're doing, and we're labelled as self-hating Jews just because we don't like the fact that they are committing genocide.
Absolutely, and I think someone, speaking of question time, like we were just earlier, there was an audience member on the last clip that I saw from there who pointed out that you can criticise any country that you like in the world, Spain, America, Australia, anywhere. Pick any country in the world, but as soon as you start to criticise Israel, they have this weaponisation of anti-Semitism and this, the disgusting way they use anti-Semitism as a political football. And this caller is absolutely correct in what he's saying there, and the frustration you can see from him, and it's affecting students. It's this massive thing within Judaism itself. Obviously, there is a lot of support, I should say, on the marches coming from members of the Jewish community, Jewish organisations and groups, and it's just simply not the case that if you criticise Israel, that means that you're an anti-Semite. Absolutely not. You'll find that most people who are on the marches, who speak out about this issue, deplore racism of any kind, including anti-Semitism, and the way that it's been weaponised for so long now. And that was pretty much one of the main tools that the right wing in this country used against Jeremy Corbyn, and the right wing press that we have used against him, and tragically members of his own party as well. It's disgusting, because as well it does detract away from genuine cases of anti-Semitism and genuine cases of racism, which is appalling. But you can't just call someone an anti-Semite for criticising Israel. I'm sure that your listeners and viewers know that already, but that's a bit of a change to see Nick Ferrari allowing someone to say it on his show without interrupting as well. Just going over the last few comments. Yeah, sorry, just bear with me. Just lining up the next clip as well as we head towards the end of the stream tonight. I've got to say it's been great to see everybody on the stream tonight, and a few people coming back from our debut stream last week as well. That's fantastic. Please do check out some of our previous content as well. Give us a like and a thumbs up and all that business. We hope you'll join us again same time next week. I do have one more clip for you. This is hopefully going out on a bit of a high. It's a clip I used a couple of times in last week's live stream. It's the parody song of Daniel Marte and his jibe at Biden and Netanyahu as well. So that's the take on Nothing's Going to Stop Us Now, which is quite the earworm, as was pointed out last week as well. So just want to end on this. Obviously, this is an appalling situation in Gaza. We'll try and keep you up to speed with the latest. I've just had a quick look while one of the clips was on. There doesn't seem to be any further news from the sources that I had time to check earlier about any further calls for Netanyahu's resignation. At the top of the show, we did talk about the recent protests in Tel Aviv itself, where people calling for him to resign for various reasons, but at the end of the day, he shouldn't be in office because he's basically a genocidal maniac, and I think that should pretty much disqualify anyone from sitting in any seat in public office, although in this day and age it certainly doesn't seem to put a few of them off, does it? So if you've not heard this song before, just do have to give credit again to Daniel Marte, who put this clip together, and I'll pause it at the end where there's a full list of credits, and I think I've given all of the shout outs for all of the clips that I used tonight as I went along, so that's okay. Thanks a lot for joining us as well. There is another way that you can help to support the channel at the moment as well. If you go to the channel and our description or any of our videos, you'll find a link for our Buy Me a Coffee page. All support there is greatly appreciated if you'd like to consider supporting the channel in that way. Like I did say, we are going to be having the membership program up and running soon, just waiting for YouTube to process all of that, and there's going to be quite a few perks when that comes out as well, but I'll talk more about that when it's actually come through, probably on next week's live stream, or I might announce it with a video. And yeah, so that's just about it. I'll let the song take us out this evening, but thanks a lot for joining us on My Left Eye, and I hope that we'll be seeing you soon. Good night, everyone. Thanks a lot for your comments as well. Yeah, thanks, Nicola. Thank you for that kind comment, and thank you to you all for your comments as well. I do have to give a shout out to you all. You've all been very cordial in the chat, and I've not really had to do any moderation. I don't have any moderators at the moment, so you've all been very cordial when you've been talking between yourselves as well, so that's been great to see. So peace and solidarity, everyone. Hope we'll see you next week.
All right, listen, man. Looking in your eyes, I see that we're aligned. This war that we fund is too good to be true. America's beside you, all these bombs to give you. Our whole GDP will just wire to you.
Let them say we're psychos. I don't care about that. History started when Hamas launched their attack. Let the whole damn region just fall apart. We're the persecuted ones, so have a heart. And we can win this thing together. Ethnic cleanse forever. Nothing's gonna stop us now. And when the strip runs out of Gazans, we'll go kill their cousins. The Hague ain't gonna stop us. Nothing's gonna stop us now. Low, low. I'm so glad we're bombing. This war is super calming. A ceasefire would mean I'd be going to jail.
Folks say it's unlawful, and yeah, the polls are awful, but Trump's on the ballot. Of course I'll prevail.
Let's go, Brandon.
Let them say it's genocide. What do they know? So you bomb the Gazans right where you tell them to go.
If we kill a hostage, or maybe 3, that's the price we pay to save ethnocracy.
You mean democracy?
And we can win this thing together. Human rights, whatever. Nothing's going to stop us now. So let the courts keep pressing charges.
Ooh, these block our barges.
Nothing's gonna stop us. Nothing's going to stop us now.
All that I need is you.
You're all that I ever need.
And all that I want to do is back you forever, forever and ever. Play it, Tony.
Yes, Mr. Blinken, yes.
Oh, yeah, that's smooth.
Smooth like a 2,000-pound bomb. And we'll just keep committing war crimes, then go do some more crimes. Nothing's gonna stop us now. And you can save your moral sermons, 'cause we've got the Germans. The hate ain't gonna stop us.
Nothing's gonna stop us.
And we'll create a global crisis. Claim Hamas is ISIS. Nothing's going to stop us now.
And if South Africa accuses,
they just hate the Jews. The hate ain't gonna stop us.
Nothing's gonna stop
we'll
us.
We'll just keep on genociding.
Baby rides with Biden.
Nothing's gonna stop us now.
Nothing's gonna stop us now.
And if our wrath gets any lower, we'll invoke the Shoah. The Hague ain't gonna stop us. Nothing's gonna stop us now or ever.
That's how you sing a goddamn song.
You are correct, sir.
I think that's the take right there, man.
Where's our Nobel Peace Prize?
High five.